The silver-violet-skinned woman stood alone at the crystal-walled balcony of her sky palace, her gown of obsidian silk flowing like liquid night against the stars. Below her stretched the endless sea of nebula clouds, glowing faintly with lightning storms in the void. To outsiders, she was untouchable, Lady Serenya Kale, the richest merchant queen in 3 sectors, feared as much as she was desired. But tonight, her sharp eyes were not fixed on contracts or fleets. Instead, her delicate fingers traced the cold edge of a jeweled chalice she had left carelessly on the marble table behind her. She did not leave treasures unattended by mistake. No, this was deliberate, a trap, because her newest hire, a human warrior with a scarred face and storm-gray eyes, had just arrived in her service. And humans, the galaxy whispered, could never resist temptation. The doors opened with a low hiss. Heavy boots echoed across the chamber floor. Without turning, she felt the presence of the man enter her domain. The air seemed to thicken, charged with something dangerous. She smiled faintly, her lips painted the shade of frozen wine. Let us see, she thought, whether this human will guard my life or reach for my gold. Hank Varon paused just inside the chamber, his broad shoulders squared, his dark Terran armor dulled from years of battle. He was taller than most of her kind, his skin a stark pale contrast to her own glowing violet hue. A scar cut across his jaw, old and brutal, but his eyes, gray, steady, unblinking, carried the weight of a soldier who had seen too much and survived anyway. Lady Kale, he said, his voice low but firm. It was not the groveling tone most men used before her. Instead, it was respectful but equal. The smallest tilt of his head acknowledged her rank. Nothing more. Serenya turned from the balcony with practiced elegance. Her gown shimmered as she circled him slowly, each step measured like a predator gauging prey. Hank's gaze followed her, not with desire, at least not openly, but with the calculating alertness of a man scanning for hidden exits and dangers. Even here, in her private chamber, he carried himself like the battlefield had never left him. "You've traveled far," she said at last, her voice laced with the crisp edge of her people's nobility. "The void is never kind to travelers. As uneventful as a pirate-infested trade lane can be," Hank replied, the faintest smirk tugging at his mouth. "Your escorts are efficient." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Few dared joke in her presence. This human, he was different, dangerous, unpredictable. Exactly why she had hired him, and exactly why she intended to test him. "You understand your duties here?" she asked, coming to a halt directly before him. "Loyalty is absolute, protection unquestioned. My rivals are cunning, my allies even more so. In my world, betrayal hides behind silken words and jeweled smiles." "I'm not here to judge your allies, Lady Kale," he said evenly. "I'm here to keep you alive. Nothing more." Something inside her stirred at his bluntness. Most guards tried to charm her, impress her, kneel until their backs broke. This human met her gaze without flinching. There was a steadiness in him she could not ignore, infuriating and fascinating all at once. "Very well," she said, allowing a faint smile to touch her lips. "You will be tested. Trust is not given freely in this house." "Good," Hank replied without hesitation. "I'd be disappointed otherwise." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The noble mistress draped in jewels and shadow, and the human soldier, scarred and steadfast. In that silence, an unspoken challenge hung heavy in the air. Serenya turned back toward the jeweled chalice glittering on the table, its gems catching the starlight. She let her fingers brush the rim deliberately, her expression unreadable. "One misstep," she thought, "and I'll know exactly what kind of man he truly is." The next 3 days passed beneath the glittering ceilings of Serenya Kale's palace, but her mind was never at ease. She had placed the human close to her, giving him quarters adjacent to her private halls. His presence was silent, watchful, and infuriatingly calm. Every motion, every glance seemed measured, as though nothing in her labyrinth of schemes could surprise him. So she began her games. The first test came quietly, a set of encrypted access codes, deliberately misplaced near the observation deck. They unlocked a small cache of her trade manifests, information worth more than silver to her rivals. She ordered her steward to leave them in the human's path. Hours later, she reviewed the security feed. Hank had found them exactly as planned. He picked the slim data card up, scanned the corridor with those storm-gray eyes, and then, without a word, slipped it back beneath the steward's tray, as though it had never been there. Her lips tightened. No comment, no curiosity. Only efficiency. The second test was subtler. An attendant, young, beautiful, and trained to draw secrets from careless lips, was instructed to cross his path. She spilled a tray of fruit across the floor, feigning distress. Hank crouched to help her gather the scattered pieces, his large scarred hands brushing close to hers. For a heartbeat, Serenya thought she saw it, the spark of human temptation. But then he set the last piece of fruit neatly on the tray, rose without lingering, and said only, "Be more careful. These floors are too polished." The attendant bowed. Embarrassed, her mission failed. Serenya felt irritation coil in her chest. The third test, however, was less gentle. A staged intrusion, a shadow slipping through her gardens at dusk. Hank was stationed nearby. She watched from her hidden console as the assassin leapt from the shadows, blade flashing. The human moved like a predator unleashed, swift, brutal, and precise. In less than 10 seconds, the intruder lay disarmed and pinned, groaning in the dirt. Hank said nothing, only secured the perimeter before calling the estate guard. Serenya sat back in her velvet chair, unsettled. Every trial she laid, he passed with irritating perfection. And yet, with each test, she found herself leaning closer to the screens, her pulse quickening. This human was no ordinary hire. He was something far more dangerous. By the end of the week, Serenya Kale's patience was wearing thin. Every minor test had failed to expose a single flaw in her new guardian. No greed, no loose tongue, no hesitation in battle. He was either the most disciplined mercenary she had ever employed, or the most cunning. So she designed a trap no one could resist. In her private chamber, upon a table of black marble, she placed a velvet casket. Inside, 12 flawless star gems pulsed with inner light, each worth more than an entire freighter. She left the lid half open, as though in careless arrogance, their brilliance spilling into the dim chamber. Then, with deliberate precision, she ensured that Hank Varen would be the one assigned to guard her door that evening. From a concealed alcove, Serenya watched through the shimmer of a hollow screen. The human stood outside, posture straight, a silent sentinel. Minutes passed. Then a false alarm chimed on his wrist device, a minor security breach staged by her steward. As planned, Hank moved quickly down the corridor to investigate. Serenya slipped into her chamber, hiding behind an ornate screen, her eyes fixed on the glowing gems. Her pulse raced. Now, at last, he will reveal himself. 7 minutes later, he returned. His boots thudded softly across the polished floor as he stepped inside to check the room. His gaze fell upon the casket. He approached slowly, picked it up, and lifted the lid. The gems glittered in his scarred hands. Serenya's lips curled in satisfaction. "Got you." But then, to her astonishment, Hank closed the lid, crossed the chamber, and stopped before her private safe. Without hesitation, he keyed in a sequence, the exact access pattern only she and her steward should have known. The safe hissed open. Gently, he placed the gems inside, secured the lock, and returned the casket to its place on the table. Serenya's heart skipped. How had he known the code? Why had he chosen to protect, rather than steal? When he resumed his post at the door, expression unreadable, she finally stepped from her hiding place, her voice cold yet trembling with curiosity. "Explain yourself, human." Serenya stepped fully into the light, her emerald eyes sharp as blades. The chamber doors sealed behind her with a hiss. Hank did not startle, did not even flinch at being caught near her private safe. He simply turned to face her, gray eyes steady, arms relaxed at his sides. "You accessed my vault," she said, voice edged with ice. "Without permission. I secured your property." he answered calmly, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Her jaw tightened. You had the code. Your steward provided it when I was hired, he replied. Standard protocol. Valuable items left exposed during a gathering? They belonged somewhere safer. She studied his scarred face, searching for deceit. There was none. Only that maddening composure. Why not take them for yourself? She pressed. Star gems could buy you a fleet. His lips curved into the faintest ghost of a smile. Because my price has already been agreed upon. Serenya's eyes narrowed. Credits? That's all you want? No, his voice softened. A rare crack in the armor. I send most of what I earn to a sanctuary. Out on the border moons. A hospital for survivors of the Hive Wars. They're forgotten people. Children, soldiers, widows. Someone has to keep them alive. The words caught her off guard. She had expected greed, corruption, perhaps ambition. Not this. Not selfless sacrifice. You give away your wages, she said slowly, to strangers who are not even of your species. They bleed the same, Hank replied simply. They deserve more than the galaxy gives them. For a moment, silence thickened the air between them. Serenya felt something stir inside her chest, an unfamiliar warmth. Humans were supposed to be reckless, driven by desire and impulse. Yet this one, he defied every story she had been told. She circled him once more, but this time her steps were slower, her gaze not only calculating but curious, dangerous, intrigued. You are a puzzle human, she murmured. One I have not yet decided how to solve. Hank held her stare without fear. Then keep testing me, Lady Kale. But know this. His voice dropped, steady as thunder. I am not here to steal from you. I am here to protect you, whether you trust me or not. The revelation lingered in Serenya's mind long after she dismissed him back to his post. She told herself it was irrelevant. What her bodyguard did with his credits was of no consequence to her empire. And yet, the thought of a human soldier quietly funding a sanctuary at the edge of forgotten space unsettled her more than any rival's schemes. Her rivals, however, refused to remain quiet. 2 nights later, her steward brought troubling news. A clandestine meeting of 3 trading houses had been confirmed. They spoke of dissolving contracts, redirecting fleets, and questioning Serenya's leadership. Normally, such whispers would have reached her ears weeks in advance. This time, the plot had festered in secret, which meant betrayal within her own council. Serenya summoned Hank to her private study. He entered without hesitation, armor polished, eyes sharp. She studied him across the table, the glow of starlight casting long shadows between them. My enemies grow bold, she said, her voice calm though her pulse thrummed. They conspire to take what I have built, and someone close to me feeds their fire. Hank considered this with the stillness of a man who had weathered ambushes before. Then it's not just your wealth at risk. It's your life. She arched a brow. You think they would dare? They already have, he said flatly. That assassin in the gardens? He wasn't meant to scare you. He was meant to test how vulnerable you are. The memory flickered in her mind. The swift strike, the human's brutal counter. Could it be true? That was no simple decoy. It had been a probe, a message. Then what do you suggest, Guardian? She asked, leaning forward, intrigued despite herself. Let me do my job, Hank replied. Not just stand at your door. I need full access to your council records, your schedules, your movements. If you want me to guard you, then stop hiding half the battlefield. Her eyes narrowed. No one spoke to her with such audacity. Yet his words carried a brutal logic. Trust had been her test for him. Perhaps now it was her turn. She allowed herself a measured breath, then gave a single nod. Very well, human. Let us see if you are as capable at dismantling plots as you are at breaking bones. The council chamber glittered with obsidian stone and banners of power, but the air stank of betrayal. Serenya Kale entered draped in emerald and silver, her chin high, her every step echoing like a blade drawn across glass. Hank walked behind her, armored and silent, the living shadow that had unnerved her rivals from the moment he arrived. Around the table sat the representatives of 3 houses, rivals cloaked in courtesy, daggers hidden behind their smiles. At the far end, one of her own counselors shifted nervously, the very man she had suspected of treachery. Documents lay before them. Falsified ledgers, accusations of waste, whispers that she had grown soft, and all of it timed perfectly to break her empire apart. But she was not unprepared. With a flick of her jeweled fingers, Serenya summoned holographic records into the air. Bribes traced back to rival treasuries. Secret transfers to the traitor on her own council. A network of deceit displayed for all to see. Gasps rippled across the chamber. The trap had been sprung, but not against her. The traitor stammered excuses. One rival drew back in fury, but none of them noticed Hank until his boots struck the floor, stepping forward like thunder. He spoke in a low, steady voice that silenced the room. "Your plots are finished. She is not alone. And if you strike again, you strike through me." The weight of his words pressed heavier than any weapon. Even Serenya felt it, a strange heat unfurling in her chest. By the time the guards hauled the traitor away, the rivals had retreated, their ambitions crushed beneath evidence and fear. The chamber fell quiet. Only Serenya and Hank remained, standing close beneath the fading glow of the holoscreens. "You risked much today," she said softly, her usual cold edge softened. "For me." He met her gaze without hesitation. "I told you, Lady Kale, I'm not here to steal. I'm here to protect." For once, her mask slipped. A laugh, genuine, low, unexpected, escaped her lips. And then, before her pride could stop her, she stepped closer. Close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. Close enough to touch. Her jeweled hand brushed the scar along his jaw. He caught her wrist gently, firmly. Their eyes locked. The kiss that followed was slow, burning, defiant of every law of rank and station. In that moment, Serenya realized the truth. She had set treasures out as a test, but the real treasure was standing before her all along. Sparkles, if you were in Lady Kale's place, would you trust the human bodyguard, or dismiss him after the first test? Tell me in the comments. Backhand index pointing down. Your answer might surprise even me.